Greetings and welcome back to another TNT Point of View. I am Tom. I'm a right-leaning religious nut, author, website developer, PhD in molecular toxicology, also seen on YouTube as switched to Linux. And this is my brother Tim.
And I am a left-leaning heathen game developer, musician with a BS in game art and design, and also seen on Twitch and YouTube as Mavis Games. Tom,
All right.
how are you
Well,
doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's been an interesting week. Crazy election cycle, and one of us might be happy by the end of it, maybe not. I don't know, but I guess
Probably
neither.
not.
Yeah, hey, at least I voted for somebody that I kind of wanted in office, sort of.
No, I just voted for somebody to get someone else out.
Well, we'll see what happens with those crazy elections down the road. But since we're not like Fox News, we're not allowed to announce winners or losers.
Right, exactly. So let's get to this. What are we talking about tonight?
All right. Well, today we want to talk about legalization, drug legalization versus decriminalization, things like that. And this is one we've had many talks over the years on. And I can say I don't specifically agree with your final viewpoint, but I'm moving along in a general direction, mostly because just leave people alone and let them do what they want to do. But there is definitely some nuance and some things to consider, and so we're going to be looking at legalizations. We're going to be looking at a lot of other things, and if you want to jump on anything before we get to the articles, go ahead and do that.
Nothing in particular. Let's go ahead and take a look. What are we looking at first?
So first we're going to head on over to the Werewolf of Harrisburg. That would be the governor of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
That's right. The Werewolf of Harrisburg. And he, of course, amidst all of the COVID lockdowns and trying to destroy Christmas, how the werewolf stole Christmas, he is in the middle of doing all of this kind of stuff with, hey, let's get on a lot of people's good sides and let's shoot for that legalization of weed in the middle of all this. And so we have a couple of articles from him. This one's back in just September. Wolf and Governor Fetterman today called on legislature to take up the legalization of adult use cannabis with the state economic recovery amid COVID-19. Legalization will also create more outlets for important restorative justice programs in the Commonwealth. Now more than ever, we see a desperate need for this. So what are your first thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I think it's long overdue.
Okay.
To begin, it's long overdue, way long overdue by decades, really, not by a couple of years. I'm talking about decades. But for the most part, this article just really talks about how the Lieutenant Governor Fetterman had gone on a speaking, asking, and listening tour of should we legalize marijuana, which in my personal court, just because, just because of how I've grown up personally, it's a resounding yes.
Okay.
Frankly, it should be done. It should have been done long ago. At least, in my opinion, they're making strides to go in a more proper direction. Not necessarily right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I question the timing of it. It's like we need to come up with something to recover. Here's a thought, Governor Wolf. Allow us to open our businesses. You want to talk about recovery, there's your first step. But since we're talking about legalization and things like that, we don't want to jump off on COVID quite today. But looking at it now, it looks like they're looking at legalization. So before we dive too much further, let's go ahead and define the terms. There's two general areas we find in the field of law regarding drug use. One is legalization and the other is decriminalization. And Tim, why don't you give us the breakdown of these two and what they mean and their nuances?
You've got full-blown legalization. You can buy it, you can grow it, you can sell it if you have a proper business license, and you can possess it with no harm, no foul. It's no different than buying and selling alcohol or cigarettes. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I could go and buy enough alcohol right now to kill myself in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, there's no way possible to do so with pot.
Okay.
Unless you smoke a quarter ton of it in like 17 seconds, I think the number is. But at
Yeah,
that point, you're talking asphyxiation of the
it's
lungs.
yeah, it's something insanely high. Like the
Really, really high.
LC 50 of pot is or LD 50 of pot, excuse me, is extraordinarily high. I don't have the number in front of me, but it is not something that is going to happen unless you're chugging bottles of pure THC like liquor. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I don't think we've come that far yet.
No, no, no. I mean, the stupidest thing I've ever done as a student of chemistry is there was a bottle of 99% pure nicotine on the shelf. I'm like, what does that smell like? Bad idea. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. I'm pretty
Um,
sure if you touch that, you die.
no, no. I survived a sniff, but
A sniff,
it
but it
wasn't
didn't
good.
torch
Yeah,
your
it
skin.
wasn't a sniff. I mean, I was a chemist. I mean, I was well trained. It's one of these.
Right.
Okay. And that was enough. Yeah, nicotine's pretty bad, of course. Alcohol's pretty
Yeah,
bad.
I will agree with
Um,
you.
yeah, so there's that, and then that's legalization, decriminalization.
Now, decriminalization means basically it's not really legal to have it, but you're no longer going to jail.
Hmm. So it's
And
like we found you, dump it out. That's about it. We
yeah,
found it, dump it out. That's about
yeah,
it.
we found it, we dump it out.
Um,
Here's a slap on the wrist, your $100 fine, and be on your way. Stop
mhm.
doing that.
Yeah,
Now
there you go.
it's a ticket at this point. It's like a
Yeah.
speeding ticket,
Hmm.
although kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. All right. So we have another one also from the Werewolf's office on October 13th. Legalization of adult use cannabis can lead to economic gains and restorative justice for Pennsylvanians.
He's
All
trying
right.
to sell that to politicians.
Correct. Yeah. So
That's who he's trying to sell that one to.
all right.
And
So
politicians like money and economic gains and restorative justice, make themselves feel like they're looking
well,
good.
the politicians don't care about restorative justice. It's
Yeah,
the
you're right.
BLM, Antifa, the guys tearing apart Philadelphia and such. They're the ones that want the restorative justice. Of course, then we
But we're
have
talking
the
about people who have been busted just for pot. All they had
yes,
was pot.
yes. So
That
let's go ahead
that was the whole reason they went to jail.
yeah.
Just pot. They weren't killing people. They weren't mowing over. I don't know, a parade. They didn't
Hmm.
slam into a school bus full of
Sure, sure.
nuns.
Let's
They
let's
just
move
went to
on
jail
though on
because
this.
they had some pot.
So economic gains, of course, refers to he wants part of the legalization to be very much like Colorado. We're going to establish a marketplace. We're going to give people licenses. We're going to allow dispensaries, and you can go and pick it up even for recreational use. The economic gain is to get into some taxes. We'll get into did this work, did this not work in a moment. The second portion of this he's talking about is restorative justice, which basically means, as Tim was saying, if you're just in jail for smoking some pot, let's get you out of jail and send you on your way and maybe even compensate you for that. So let's get to the economic gains second. Let's go and talk about this restorative justice angle first. This is the part I can say that I'm leaning more towards your view in this respect, where if somebody's just like, if you've just bought yourself a little tiny bag of weed and you're going home and you ran a stop sign accidentally, they find your weed and they send you to jail for having some weed in your car. If that's your case, no, there's too many problems. Like, you're going to take somebody who just wants to go home and cook some brownies and smoke some weed. You're just going to do that and throw them into jail where they're going to learn how to do hard crime.
Jump in
Because
right quick and watch cartoons.
and watch cartoons, yes, brownies, cartoons, and whatever else. They're not hurting somebody. They're not hurting other people. And I think that's where we have to get the spirit of the law is going to relate to: are you hurting other people or are you not hurting other people?
That's where
And
I have problems, big problems with the illegality of drugs, because if you're, let's say, a heroin junkie or a coke head, and you break into somebody else's house and steal their stuff so that you can get your fix, that's a problem. But if you're talking about just the act of actually using it, that shouldn't be a problem. Just the act of possessing it, that shouldn't be a problem, because you're not actually hurting someone else. You're hurting you.
Yeah.
And that is, as you know, as it goes, the law, or your rights end, or my rights end where your rights begin. And as long as I'm not infringing upon your rights, shouldn't be a problem. Should they get help? Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess on that end, I don't see a pothead necessarily breaking into my house to steal stuff, to go buy some weed. But I will see that. Yeah, but if he breaks in, that's where he's going to be at. But if someone gets addicted to like crack or heroin or something like that, you do start to see a lot of criminal activity to get their next fix. Yeah. And so we might, and we'll talk more about that later on in the show. I don't want to take time on that right here, just to keep things somewhat organized. But yeah, I'm with you on pot. Like, I've never smoked it, despite your many attempts to get me high in high school. It just didn't work. But yeah, and I stick to that. And if you legalize it, I'm not going to be smoking pot. And
that's the big thing.
Yeah. So for me, I don't care, but I do see. What's that? We'll get into that. Actually, I actually have some. I have some texts here. We'll look into, is it a gateway drug or not? We'll get that in a minute. Let me lay out, though, my biggest argument for the full legalization route, and maybe there's something about this. And these are the things that prevents me from being like a libertarian, where it's like, hey, just free everything, nobody interferes. And I'm going to couch it in this way. I'm going to couch it in the terms of alcohol, because we're in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania has the weirdest alcohol laws, at least it did, where, you could buy your beer from the beer distributor, your wine and your harder liquors from the other store, and nothing else, and things were only open on certain times, certain days. And this is a lot of people like, I don't know. Now, I don't know how much has changed in Erie where you are, but here in State College, where we had sheets leading the way to open legislation, and now it's like you can't get away from alcohol. Here's the problem.
Up in here, I lived in North Carolina for a while, and it absolutely blew my mind that you could go to the gas station and buy beer.
Well, and I lived in Wyoming. Well, I lived in Wyoming, and we had the same thing, and I've traveled the country, and many states have this, but where most states do, and I'm not sure where North Carolina was, but most states had them as a separate location. The grocery store can sell it, but it's isolated and set in one spot in the corner, and that's not a big deal. I don't have a problem with that.
In Carolina, there was, Yoo-Hoo, Monster Energy drinks, Budweiser.
And liquor. And that's actually a rarity. That's a rarity. Many places do separate it. So here's my problem.
40 to go, and we're out?
Yeah. So here's my problem with legalization, though. The biggest problem is there are people who are addicted to alcohol and want to get off of it. And if you're throwing it in their face, you're going to make it hard for them to do that. So when Sheetz came down, well, hold on. Hear me out. So when Sheetz comes down and leads the way in the petitions, and now like I can go to Walmart and get my liquor now, the local grocery store that I like to go to, Wegmans, hear me out. So when you go in there and they first put their alcohol, they put it in the sort of in a corner, but it was right in their prepared food section. And if I were to buy prepared food, even as a family, and I wanted to sit down at the tables provided and eat, I had to walk my children through a liquor store to get to it. Okay. If a person is...
Now, that could just be crap placement by the management.
Well, and it got worse. They decided to take it out of there and put it right in the middle of the store. So now it's like you're walking down this aisle, oh, you're all of a sudden you're in the giant liquor aisle. Again, we're understanding the premise that there are people addicted to alcohol who are trying not to be. They're trying to get off of it. They're trying to be faithful to AA because they've recognized alcohol did harm their life. And if you're throwing it in front of their face everywhere they go in society, it makes it very hard to do that. I liked the idea that the liquor and the alcohol and stuff was in a separate place because it wasn't inaccessible.
It wouldn't be bad if it was kept in a separate place. I understand that. I get it. Now, that being said, though, if you're addicted to alcohol and you know you're addicted to alcohol and you know that thing's in there, what are you doing in there?
No, this is the point. Stop. This is the point. In Wyoming, in many states, the grocery store is isolated from where the grocery store sells liquor. There's a separate place. It's not in your face. It's not advertised. I can go to the grocery store and avoid it. Now I cannot go to Wegmans and avoid the liquor aisle because it's right in the middle of the store, really big and constantly advertised and in my face. Okay, that's what my point is.
Here's my question for you personally, though, is why does that bother you? Are you an alcoholic?
For me, on a personal level, I don't care because I'm not tempted by alcohol or drugs or of any form or another. I see. When did the last? I think I had a sip of.
Okay, so at this point, you're
whiskey in
you're
2012.
pushing your point of view on others.
No. What I'm doing is I'm raising a legitimate concern. I'm raising a legitimate concern for which is the better of society. And I'm not saying Wegmans can't sell liquor.
Here's the problem, though.
Hold up. I'm not saying Wegmans can't sell liquor. I'm saying Wegmans should not put liquor in the very center of the aisle where anybody and everybody absolutely will run into the aisle. That's what my argument is.
That was Wegmans' choice. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to. They chose to. They chose to probably because they're trying to sell liquor in addition to everything else because they're trying to get more money. That's what businesses do. If it's not illegalized, if it's not illegal to put it in the middle, they're going to put it in the middle because they're trying to sell it. That's their job. Their job is to sell it.
And that's my point is that Pennsylvania went from way too far this way to way too far this way. What they should have done
it should not be in the middle.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be in the middle. Frankly, it should be separated because you don't want the liquor aisle and then the Barbie doll aisle and then the kids' clothes aisle. And then, I mean, granted, though.
Or what Target did.
If you had to spend a lot of time walking down the Barbie doll aisle, the liquor aisle looks real good.
Yeah, I mean, or you do it, what Target did. Toothbrushes, dental floss, sex toys. And they were children's toothbrushes.
I need to question this here. When did they start selling sex toys at Target?
It was like last year or something. I forget. I did see the clip.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Really?
Yeah.
I
kid you. Search that stuff up, man. Search that stuff up. But yeah, and I'm with you. I don't want to tell Wegmans they can't sell liquor. But I don't want Wegmans to sell liquor in the very top center of their store, and that's kind of what the point is. Now,
why don't you want it to sell it in the middle of their store? Because frankly, that's good business.
It does make good business sense. I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that there is, you can admit that alcohol has a potential to harm people.
Also,
and sometimes people harm themselves too much. Go ahead. What?
Also, we've gone off topic and.
I know. And I said I wanted to use the example of alcohol for a reason. So now let's go ahead and bridge this back. The reason I have a problem with that full legalization is now if you're making it deeply accessible and visible to people who would have a substance abuse problem, that is really a lot of the issue because the substance abuse problem is one of the things that hurts a lot of people.
Alcohol. It's a wildly different animal.
Correct. But here's what I'm saying.
Wildly different animal.
Stop. There are still negative consequences of pot use. We can't pretend there's not. They're minor, particularly for an adult, they're minor. But what I'm saying is to normalize it in society is really what the biggest issue that I look at and say that's part of a problem. Now, how can we do that?
Is normalizing alcohol a problem?
Is normalizing alcohol a problem? I think in a way it is.
In a way, I agree with you. Mm-hmm. But alcohol is alcohol. People are going to drink if people are going to drink. And there's nothing you're going to do to stop them. The what was it? The Prohibition in the 20s.
Deeply worked. It worked perfectly.
It proved that. Not only did it prove that, it literally created the black
Yeah.
market.
Correct.
That was
And I'm with
creation
you.
of the black market.
I'm with you on this principle.
What people are going to do, there's nothing you can do to stop them from doing
Correct.
what they are going to do.
But
the only thing that you
here's
can
the
do
thing.
is try to keep it out of the hands of children.
Correct. And we have to walk a very fine line between making it too visible and making it a black market.
Well, then stop advertising it. You can't advertise cigarettes in on TV. You can't advertise cigarettes in magazines. You can't do it on the radio. You can't do it on newspapers, but people still smoke cigarettes.
I would meet you there. Sure. I would meet you there.
Now, at the same time, I see, well, I haven't seen it in a while and I don't know if they're off TV. I don't know if they outlawed them or if I simply haven't watched TV in so long that I haven't seen a beer ad. Are they still there? Are there still beer?
I haven't watched TV in a long time, dude.
I don't know. So I don't know. But at the same time, I'm well aware that Budweiser has their horses. In fact, they have to. Super Bowl. Here we go. Okay, neither one of us are sports guys. There's one of our commonalities.
Woohoo!
All right, we found one of our commonalities. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, we are brothers. We grew up in the same house. We have exactly the same parents. Your nature versus nurture argument has just been shattered.
Yeah, it's gone.
No more. Here's my hair. It's actually tripled up right now.
Yeah, I have none. I mean, I have a lot because of pandemiciness, and if you think I'm wearing a mask to go down and get a haircut, yeah.
Also, I would just like to point out, I haven't had a haircut since 2004. Suck it.
Yeah.
It turns out you're going to be okay. You're just a little hairy.
Oh, my God.
And frankly, it's covering your giant-ass ears.
Now I'm self-conscious.
Well, that's why I'm wearing these. Like I said, we are related, so genetically we've got roughly the same size ears.
Yeah, you know. All right,
and they're huge.
All right, let's move over to. Actually, let's see. Do we want to get into the medical part, or do we want to dive over into the rest of the articles when you wrap up your point?
Let's go over to the medical part. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, move over. Okay, so we're going to where the.
Okay. Well, we're going to this textbook I have on drugs.
Are we going to that 12 News thing?
That's going to be the next article we do, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk through some points that this book makes. So this is a 1999 toxicology text.
All right, I have to stop you for a moment.
Yeah.
1999 toxicology test. One, who was it written by? Two, it's wildly outdated.
Okay. Yes.
And probably wrong because they're not actually allowed to test.
No, actually, that is incorrect. You are allowed to do a lot of research.
Well, you can do a lot of research.
So
but
this is
very difficult to get grants to do.
The research in this book is compiled between the first edition of this book comes out in 1975. These are toxicological reviews. Okay, stop. These are toxicological reviews. This particular chapter has 61 different medical references.
Who wrote it?
And none of these are going to be articles. These are going to be medical researchers. So we have pharmacology and experimental therapeutics. We have Southern Medical Journals. We have marijuana myths, marijuana facts, which is, I think that is actually maybe a journalistic article. Archives of the General Psychiatry, New England Journal of Medicine. So that's where we're looking at. Okay. And
I don't have access to what you're looking at. So
correct. So
I have to take what you say in real time.
So what I just kind of want to look at is they go through. Actually, you would like this chapter because they really go through looking at a lot of the myths, looking at a lot of the challenges, looking at a lot of the areas, mechanism of interaction, not too unlike some other drugs. The biggest thing that it does is going to interfere with the potassium pump. So your body's constantly pushing, like 80% of your energy is spent pumping these stupid sodium and potassium ions back and forth across these membranes because they just won't stay where they should go. Smoking marijuana stops the reverse cycling of the potassium pumps, basically, and basically allows free flowing of potassium, which isn't necessarily a huge deal. As we already said, the LD50, that is the lethal dose.
I need to question this because I don't know anything about that one.
Sure.
The potassium thing. Oh man, what does potassium do for your system?
So basically, it's basically two salts. So sodium and potassium, and they're always trying to fight equilibrium. Remember that the real biological definition of death is when your body reaches equilibrium. So your body goes to these tremendous strides to resist equilibrium. So it's always just kind of pushing these things across the membranes. When too much potassium builds up, I forget all of the downsides of it, but it's not like you're going to fall over and die, which is why, I mean, that's literally all marijuana does on a pharmacological level. So it's not going to be a particular dangerous drug in that respect. You're not going to smoke some weed and die tomorrow. In fact, it's generally considered one of the safer items here.
I think the word is benign.
Benign is, yes, a good word. Now, one of the things that we will mention here is the percentage of THC, which is going to come up in the articles we look at later. Even when they were doing the research for this book, they were still looking at average levels around 3.5%, which THC is significantly higher now.
Yeah.
We had now understand that there is zero difference between marijuana at 1.75% and 3.35%. I'm going to throw up a clip for these guys to have a brief look at that. There it is for you. Oh, maybe you can see that. I doubt you can't see nothing. You'll see it when we edit the video. What we're looking at is this guy here. One of these two lines is 1.75%. One of them is like 3.2%. They are identical, which means the smallest minute amount of THC is going to be pharmacologically active. The problem is there's so much in modern marijuana. That's the thing people question, but still we don't have a lot of data indicating that it's toxicologically
Let me stop right
bad.
here. Hang on. Mm-hmm. In some circles, that's a good thing.
What?
The higher the THC, kind of the better it is. It's kind of like drinking. Are you going to drink a beer or are you going to do a shot?
Correct.
Which one do you want to do?
And that also can be a problem because there are some pharmacological effects that when we get into these arguments, sometimes we don't want to admit that there are negative consequences. The biggest negative consequences, the central nervous system impact through regular use. In general, all senses, we're quoting here, in general, all the senses may be enhanced by perception of time but the perception of time is usually altered. Users report an increase in sense of well-being, mild euphoria, relaxation, relief from anxiety. The subjective effects include dissociation of ideas, illusions, and hallucinations. I can't talk today. Occur infrequently. It is way too late. We're almost midnight, man. Whoa.
Hang on. Go back to that first one. The
Which
ideas.
The dissociation of ideas portion.
Yeah. What?
Users report an increased sense of well-being, mild euphoria, relaxation, relief from anxiety. The subjective effects include dissociation of ideas, illusions, and hallucinations occur infrequently.
Of ideas for what?
I think that this is a direct quote from one of the references here, and if I have my guess, this is a subjective, probably a psychological report saying where do you have your ideas? So in other words, a dissociation of ideas would mean that you have a lot of different random ideas and you're not exactly sure how to put them all together. That's what they're saying. And as a quote, that's probably something that somebody was subjectively saying. I don't know if you have any comment on that one way or the other.
I'm going to have a comment right now.
Go ahead.
Explain to me art, video games, movies, music.
Well, I'm not saying that these are useless ideas. I'm saying they're dissociated ideas, which can indeed help that creative design in some ways, because ideas will come randomly rather than through linear thought. And that's what the difference is.
Randomly is a lot of good.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just reporting what the data says. At higher doses, user experiences intensification of emotional responses and alterations in sensation that resemble mild sensory distortions and even mild hallucinations. I cannot say that word today for some reason.
Hallucinations? Okay,
yes.
I can tell you for a fact.
Yeah.
Let me delve into some historical fact here. I've only been able to hallucinate once smoking pot, and I've smoked a lot of it.
You don't say.
Frankly, you've got to smoke a lot of it to hallucinate. It's a lot. All right, continue.
Correct. All right, let's jump on over and look at the gateway. Is this a gateway drug? And so what?
A lot in a single sitting. Continue.
Okay.
Is this
All
a
right.
gateway drug?
So is this a gateway drug? So this table looks at heavy smokers versus occasional smokers, N of 45 for the heavy, 44 for the occasional. So 50-50 group. Some are like regular potheads. The other guys are like, yeah, I'll smoke some on the weekend if you got it. And what they looked at is the percentage of people who have ever used among these groups. So hallucinogens.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I have.
And more than 10 times. Hallucinogens.
Yes.
Wow. I'm just gonna say the H word, man. The H word. Go to the H word.
Hallucinate.
So what they're saying here is 44%. 44% of heavy smokers have used them versus 23%. I'm sorry, that's 44 users, which is 98% of heavy smokers have used them versus only 42%, 23 of the occasional smokers. Whether or not that is causation correlation is certainly up to date. Used it more than 10 times, 80% versus 11%. Used cocaine, 71% among heavy smokers versus 18% on occasional smokers. Cocaine greater than 10 times, 44% versus, they have a 0 in a little subset C. Okay, so what that little subset C is, a statistical probability of 0.001. So basically like one guy accidentally sniffed some, I guess.
Okay.
Inhalants, 24% versus 7%. Stimulants, 31% versus 16%. Sedative, wow.
Sedative.
Morphine, okay? Morphine.
Okay. Sedative.
Sedative hypnotics is what the term is.
Okay, so
60
now you're
versus
going into heroin and...
actually, opioids is next. Opioids is 27% versus 2%. And any of the above, 100% versus 59%. And subjects currently using cigarettes greater than 1 pack a day, 38% among heavy smokers versus 11 non-smokers, and alcohol greater than 10 drinks per week, 38% versus 20. So it would appear that people who are heavy pot smokers do indeed across the board use more hard drugs. Again, is this causative? Is marijuana causing people to do this, or is this a correlative?
No, that's correlation.
Okay.
That's straight up correlation. And here, let me go ahead and explain this whole fucking thing. Oh, man, I just dropped an F-bomb. Bleep me.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine.
Bleep me. I'm trying my best not to swear, Tom. I'm trying my best.
This is an accomplishment, guys. I've not had a conversation with him this long without an F-bomb. Just an FYI.
Okay, just for the record, it's difficult to do because this is the kind of thing that drives me crazy. They say marijuana is a gateway drug, and they're wrong. Marijuana is not the gateway drug. Marijuana is currently illegal, okay? Therefore, it's pushed to the black market. You know who you go to for the black market? A drug dealer. You know what a drug dealer does? They deal drugs. That's what they do. They're going to get you in there on the pot. They're going to try to sell you the pills because they know the pills is where the money's at. They're going to try to sell you the coke because they know the coke is where the money's at. They are drug dealers. That's their job. They are drug dealers. They want to deal you drugs, as many drugs as they can possibly deal you. You know where you're not going to find people selling you coke for your drug?
I would wager a guess, a legalized dispensary.
A legalized dispensary, yes, but you're definitely not going to find the coke dealer at the liquor store. You're not going to find the heroin dealer at the liquor store. It's not Jack Daniels, Bacardi rum, and heroin, cocaine, morphine. That's where the drug dealer comes in. And frankly, it's not a gateway drug by use. It's a great gateway by association. And they have to associate with these people because they're not selling things in a legal dispensary.
No.
As soon as you do, you put a damper on what the black market can sell. If you went full legalization and you made it cheap, you would find out who the heroin dealers, the coke dealers, the meth dealers are really, really fast.
How many people try harder drugs because they are not satisfied with their high in marijuana anymore?
I would say very few. It's most likely the people that are actually trying these drugs were trying to get to their drug dealer to buy some pot, but their pot dealer didn't have any pot. He had heroin this time.
All right.
So they said, well, hell, if they lied to me about pot, maybe they lied about heroin. Maybe they lied about coke. Sure. Let me just go on record here. They didn't lie about heroin. Heroin's vicious. Cocaine, vicious. These methamphetamines, vicious. Pot, not even close. They shouldn't be lumped into the same category. It should be completely expunged and a separate entity. Basically, it should be as cheap as lettuce, Tom. They could completely eliminate the black market if they undercut the black market drug dealers. That's all they got to do. So, that's a business move.
So, in response to this, I would, as a scientist, propose a different reason why this. Somebody who smokes a lot of drugs is likely to try other drugs. Somebody who's the occasional smoker is not likely to try other drugs. It's very simple logic.
That is true. That is very true. However, 99% of the, well, not 99, well, no, probably close to the 90% of the time, the hardcore pot smoker is just trying to smoke some good pot. Not necessarily interested in cocaine, not necessarily interested in heroin.
Here's another factor they may not have considered compiling this chart that we also have to look as a scientist. Are these heavy smokers because they just really like their pot, or are these heavy smokers because they're engaged in the party lifestyle? Because there's a radical difference.
Probably a little bit of different. Well, nah, not necessarily. I myself don't give a crap about the party sphere. I don't care. But I would technically be considered a heavy user.
You don't say.
Oddly enough, these days, not quite as much.
All right.
Not even close.
Here is another one. This is possibly looking at the same group. Lifetime diagnosis of substance abuse and dependency in heavy versus occasional smokers. Clearly, the cannabis is listed at 100%. This is the occasional zero.
For what is that?
What's that?
Hang on, reread that first, that like whole paragraph.
Well, that was just me summarizing the table. So this is lifetime diagnosis. So people who are diagnosed sometime in their lifetime for substance abuse and dependency in heavy users versus occasional users. Heavy users, cannabis, they're listing at 100. That could actually just be a positive control. I'm not sure how they're reporting that.
Are we still on the...
We've flipped the page.
Are we still on the gateway thing?
No. This is looking at substance abuse and dependency.
Okay.
Heavy and occasional. Alcohol, 24% alcohol versus 11%. And then all of the other ones is interesting. Cocaine, hallucinations, hypnotics, and polysubstance. Those all have percentages in the heavy smokers, 13, 7, 2, and 4, and 0 in the occasional. What's that?
What's
polysubstance would probably mean, they don't tell me exactly here on the table, but I would guess that means a variety of different substances.
Okay. And are we still talking about cannabis users
versus like heavy users versus light users, occasional users?
For exactly what? If they've done this, then they've done that.
If they've been diagnosed with or have had substance abuse or dependency.
Okay. Then they've probably smoked pot.
Yeah, well, what they're saying here is that the people who only occasionally smoke pot generally don't have any dependencies except alcohol, versus the heavy smokers do report. Again, that gets back to the same question. Are these like party scene guys, or, there's a lot about that study we need to have.
I would like to say from some kind of experience, because you don't hang out with the same kind of crowd that I hang out with.
I have a sneaky suspicion, unless you're going to Bible studies or something, probably not.
Yeah, we probably hang out with wildly different groups of people. I know people that I've known people from back when I was 19. Full disclosure, I'm 43.
How'd you get
And
so old?
they're, God, I know time is a jerk. I was about to drop an A bomb. I don't want to get us kicked off of YouTube immediately.
Dude, they're already going to kick us off for this topic.
Oh, God.
At
Well,
least they're going to send it to the gulag. Of course,
sweet.
they sent my video to the gulag. All I was doing the other day is just showing you how to install Kodi on a television set.
They're all like,
Guys,
no, you're not allowed to do this.
Yeah, I sent you that video. You had to log into YouTube to watch it.
Didn't actually read it. Anyways, or watch it. But I saw you sent. I was like, one of his videos got flagged for something. I figured you were going to tell me later. We've gone off topic here.
Yeah.
Where were we at?
You were talking about the people that you knew in 19.
The party scene. I know people that are still living like it's Friday night when it's clearly Wednesday or Tuesday. They're going out trying to go to a party or go to the bar every single night. And if you're at the bar every single night, you're going to run into somebody who's got some coke. You're going to run into somebody who's got some mushrooms. You're going to run into somebody who's got some LSD. You're going to run into somebody who's got some methamphetamines. You're going to run into somebody who's got some pills. Because everybody's going to go and have a drink, and everybody kind of converges, and drug dealers are drug dealers, as we previously discussed. They're going to try to sell. They're going to try to push. That's what they do. That's their job. They have to hustle because they're not trying to go to Arby's and earn $7.25 an hour. So there are people that I have actually lost. You remember Vince Miller?
Yeah.
Dead. Heroin. Turns out it was heroin.
Yeah.
I'm all like, really? I had no idea.
So I suppose I'm never going to get that book back there to lend to him, huh?
Which one? The Nikki Sixx book?
No. It was How Real is Real by, I don't know, somebody. I don't know. I'll have to get on Amazon and find a copy.
Do I have that?
I doubt it. I lent it to him.
Remember.
I lent it to him when he was sleeping on the couch. You know.
Oh, well, that was a hot minute ago. No, you're probably not getting that back. Sorry, Tom.
Bummer. I like that book.
Frankly, I'm not getting back Rival Schools either. However, I went out and bought myself another copy of it.
Okay, there you
go. Video game. You know, just go and get another copy of it, man, because frankly, you're never going to see it again.
Sure.
And he's just on a long list of people that I grew up partying with, and they just kept on partying like it was 1999, and they're dead. They just died. And frankly, it wasn't because of pot. It was because they kept on going. Pot maybe wasn't enough for their psyche. They wanted more.
Yeah.
Me personally, that's enough.
Yeah. So, but that brings us back to the point that yes, it can indeed push some people into other areas, but
it's true. But that's up to the individual psychological state of that person. It's a psychological issue. It shouldn't be a legal issue.
Let's look at some of the other systems. Toxicology breaks the body into systems. Cardiovascular systems, slightly elevated heart rate, but quote, no human being has known to have died of an overdosage. Extrapolation from animal studies, the ratio of lethal to effective intoxicating dose is estimated to be in the order of thousands to one. So you're not going to die of heart conditions. The pulmonary is the one area where you can actually look at some dangers, whereas marijuana does contain a lot more of the dangerous compounds than do cigarettes. So when you're breaking it down, what's that?
Which compounds?
So carbon monoxide, let's see. Carbon monoxide is higher in tobacco. Let's see. Carbon dioxide is higher in tobacco. Ammonia is higher in marijuana. Hydrogen cyanide is higher in marijuana.
What year is that information? Is that still the 1999 pharmacological thing?
Probably, but I mean, this is not information that's going to be disputed.
Yeah, I would argue.
Okay, give me the scientific research that's good scientific research.
Not
This
necessarily
reference.
good scientific research. I'm
Okay,
saying right now they have to grow by standards. And if they tested it now, the ammonia would probably be lower simply because they're growing under confined standards. They're growing under regulations.
okay.
For the other stuff, they can put
This
anything in there.
particular article is case study adverse effects of smoking marijuana while receiving tetracycline antidepressants from the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry from 1997.
Oof. Okay.
So acetylene is much higher. Acetone is a little bit lower. Acrolein slightly higher. Acetonitrile is slightly higher. Benzene is higher. Toluene is higher. Dimethylnitrosamine is lower. Methyl ethyl nitrosamine is about the same. Then there's particulate matters. Some of them are higher in cigarettes. Some of them are higher in marijuana. Some of these are so much higher in marijuana that it doesn't really matter what the growing conditions are. The point is that it will have similar effects to the lungs as smoking will. For all you guys out there trying to get pregnant or not get pregnant, you will be pleased to know that marijuana use does decrease your sperm count. So, you know. And then there's side effects, major side effects associated with acute marijuana. So acute is short-term. Marijuana are dose-related extensions of its recreational sedation, altered motor coordination resulting from intoxication, impaired cognition, and reduced short-term memory. It impairs a person's ability to drive an automobile safely, much as alcohol does. So there's a lot of information there. We're actually just going to skip over to the end because I kind of want to read these last sections because I think this is the part you will appreciate the most. It says the first reports that casually linked use of marijuana to aggression, violence, and crime appeared during the 1930s. Governmental commissions over the past 100 years, the first being the Indiana Hemp Commission report in 1894, have all concluded marijuana is not the demon that it is often perceived to be. Nevertheless, the laws against marijuana are often excessively harsh, with a marked discrepancy between the true danger to society and the perceived danger. Today, only the unsophisticated believe marijuana leads to violence and crime. Indeed, marijuana is much likely less than alcohol to precipitate aggressive behavior. Instead of inciting criminal behavior, cannabis induces mild lethargy that is not conducive to the commission of crimes. The release of inhibitions results in fantasy and verbal rather than behavioral expression. During the high, marijuana users say they say and think things they would not ordinarily say and think, but they generally do not do things that are foreign to their nature. To date, the reports of all government commissions that have investigated marijuana have not only opposed legally restricting cannabis, nor do they suggest cannabis is a safe drug for general use. They do, however, question the severity of punishment when perceived danger to society is far greater than the actual dangers to either society or to the individual. Recent controversies over the medical availability of prescription of cannabis are only the latest of a strong string of federal responses to a perceived danger. There's a little bit more, but I think we get the gist of it. Basically saying that,
yeah. Who wrote that?
Oh, I don't know. That's going to be a summary of the medical team that assembled the book. I mean, these are not books that are written by a single guy sitting down. These are medical texts.
Right, fair enough. So, but it sounds like the Nixon dude, and I can't remember his name. Woodrow.
The general editor is Robert Julian.
Nope, that's not the guy.
No, probably not. But anyway,
no, that's definitely not the guy.
No, I mean, anyway, their point is, and I will agree with them that marijuana is not going to kill you, but there are also some negative consequences that is worthy of consideration. Now, I never think that somebody should be in a prison cell for having a little bit of weed on them. I don't think that is a effective use of a person's life. I don't think it's an effective use of the taxpayers' money. I don't find a reason to lock somebody up for that. So I'm definitely with you on that. Where I have a problem, I think, is probably more of the area that there are going to be some issues that we need to deal with. We do need to figure out how to keep kids safe from it, particularly because people should probably not be smoking pot until they're at least into their 20s. A similar level of alcohol because of how the brain develops. That is what the science does seem to suggest. And maybe I'd be open to relaxing some laws to have better research.
In some ways, I think that that's flawed. In some ways.
Which ways?
For example, the adolescent thing. I mean, come on, Tom. I've been smoking pot since I was 16.
How well do you function without it?
Huh?
How well do you function without it?
Fine.
Like if you were to have to go a month or two, you'd be fine?
Yeah. I could go tomorrow if I wanted to. It's really not that bad. Mm-hmm. I went through the whole day today without smoking anything until, well, really through this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, still, if you dig into the science, you are going to find in the science, yes, there are negative consequences for adolescents.
I'm not going to say that that's not wrong. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I am saying, yeah, it probably will make some kind of a chemical thing happen. What I will say, though, is that people sell marijuana, at least back in the day, to make money. And frankly, a high school kid doesn't have a job, doesn't want to work hard. They can sell pot. You know who I bought pot from once? Darren Crew.
Man, like the arch enemy of the neighborhood?
Yeah.
How dare you enrich the enemy?
I wasn't trying to enrich the enemy. I was just trying to catch a buzz. And frankly, he had some. So, you know.
There you go.
And that's basically how it went down. And there were a lot more pot smokers in Edinburgh than you might realize. Practically all the jocks.
Oh yeah.
But that being said, though, kids can get a hold of it right now because it's illegal. Okay?
I don't know if that's going to change.
I had a much more difficult time getting pot or getting beer than I could getting pot. Mm-hmm. Period. Hands down. Pot was a phone call. Beer was you got to stand out in front of the distributor and try to.
I don't think though that if you legalize it, that underground market for adolescents is going to go away.
The underground market for adolescents will go away if you take it out of the black market, simply because if it's done properly, because we were talking about this earlier, the legalization. Which one was it? Not Oregon, it was the PBS one, how Colorado's marijuana legalization strengthened the drugs black market. I would like to get into this. It didn't.
Sure.
It didn't. The black market was already there. It was.
Well,
it had
they didn't say it created.
It had already been there.
Okay,
but it didn't make it any stronger. The same guys that were selling it before are still selling it now.
Well, okay.
They're just getting it through a source that is less than legal.
You're going to make me defend this crappy article, really?
I'm going to have to make you defend this crappy article.
Man, this, like, I was so on board with this article sucked, and you're going to make me defend it.
No, this article straight up sucked. I'm absolutely agreeing. This was stupid.
What they didn't say is it created it. What they did say is it strengthened it.
I didn't say they did.
Correct.
And they didn't strengthen it either. They made
I disagree. I will disagree. I believe that some of the things that Colorado did, how they did it, did help to strengthen it, because now you had large areas where it became legal to grow marijuana in a large scale for export out of the state, which is illegal in Colorado's law.
Absolutely true.
So in effect, though, what they were doing is it brought in more people who were able to grow it and brought in a lot more people who could mule it out. Well, and that is what strengthened it.
Because what they did was make it so that anybody can go in there, buy a house. They didn't necessarily have to be a legal resident. They could just be a fake conglomerate, buy 12 houses and say, we're renting them out to these 12 people, when that was never even
but the point is that happened in Colorado because
it happened in Colorado. It happened because
they made it legal. Yes.
Now, here's the difference, though. It was still coming in. Period.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Through Canada, or it's being grown somewhere illegally in the United States, including Yellowstone National Park. And it's not legal.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. By saying it strengthened, they mean that it increased the place of production. I agree with you. It's all over the place. I agree with you. It's coming in.
Place of production. It decreased the risk of transport.
Correct. Because and that is strengthening the black market. That's exactly what strengthening the black market is.
Black market. Do you know why, though? Because there is a black market.
Correct.
If there wasn't a black market, that wouldn't even be a problem. If anybody could grow
but the black market,
States,
the black market was strengthened by creating a situation where they legalized portions in Colorado.
The only reason it's strengthened is because it's not legalized nationally and worldwide. And if it was cheap, if it was as cheap for an ounce of pot as it is for a fifth of liquor, wouldn't it be a problem? Illegal grows wouldn't even be able to kind of compete. They'd have to sell it for $2 instead of $20. And frankly, right now, you're looking at $2.50 for an ounce. $250 for an ounce. Okay, you're looking at $47 for 2/5 of Everclear.
Okay,
and Everclear can straight up kill you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on board with that as far as there's definitely some issues. But what I'm saying, is it's how Colorado put this into effect. Now, I'll also give you some anecdotal evidence here. Number one, not everybody in Colorado is on board with this. The biggest problem we find with many states is they can be wagged by the population of the large cities. And having lived right next to Colorado when this stuff happened, it did produce a lot more drug trafficking out of the state because they made it so easy to grow things. And a lot of people in Colorado were kind of irritated that they did this, and it did increase a lot of traffic accidents. It did increase a lot of other things surrounding it. But I agree with maybe how Colorado did this. So I have a friend in Michigan, and in Michigan, it is legal to have, I think he said, up to 2 or 3 plants of your own personal. So now they've even gotten rid of the necessary part of having to go out and buy it. It's like you can have a couple plants growing in your house. You have a couple plants growing in your house. You can grow your own. You're not out there. And I think that the reason many states don't want to do this is because of the money. If someone can grow their own plant, they're not out buying the stuff, right?
I mean, yeah, you can, but there's some people out there, like me, who do not have a green thumb.
I do. I mean, can we tell that hilarious story? I mean, that was like 20 years back. You remember the one I'm talking about, right? So he doesn't have a green thumb. I do. I can grow anything. I have a 7-foot grapefruit tree that I grew from a seed from a Walmart grapefruit. Okay, guys.
I can walk into my hallway and grab you a dead aloe plant.
How do you kill an aloe plant? So anyway, this was way past statute of limitations. Way past statute of limitations. We'll say that. Going back 20 years, and I got this green thumb, and I go to Tim's house. He's like, I got something to show you. He opens up the closet. There's a bunch of plants in there. He's like, got any advice? I said, don't get caught.
Yeah, that was his advice. Real good advice. That's not the advice I was looking for. Frankly, though, they all died because, as mentioned, I killed an aloe plant.
Of course.
There is, if you can grow it yourself, which I probably wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't even want to be bothered with it. There's a lot of people that either A, can't do it, B, don't want to be bothered with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work there.
Yeah, in Michigan, though, you can have a small amount as well. So if you don't have the green thumb, you can buy it from a legal dispensary. What you can't do is you can't take yours and sell yours to somebody else. Although there's no law against gifting it to somebody. And if you want to gift it to somebody and they want to gift you a 20 spot, technically in the letter of the law, that's legal. But maybe a better solution would be, instead of each state figuring out to do a federal thing, I'm not completely on board, but I'd be interested in at least having a conversation about what we can do. For me to say, let's go ahead and do a federal legalization, I'd want to make sure that we have a means to protect the people who are tempted by it and don't want to see it. I would want to see a means to make sure.
That's hysterical to me, because I know way more potheads than I do not.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
You probably rank in 10, maybe 20 people that I know that don't.
Yeah, well, you know.
2 of them are my kids.
When you're... Do they count if they're toddlers?
I'm going to have to say yes, because apparently after 26 weeks, it's a person.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But I would like to see, I'd like to see some good regulations, some good ways to keep it out of the hands of kids.
The best way to keep it out of the hands of kids, like I said previously, is to legalize it and put it in legal dispensaries, because now you have to go to a legal dispensary.
I believe this one from 12 News kind of covered that a little bit, right?
Right. It was the doctor guy.
Yeah, so we have a couple things in this article here. They went through and they talked to a mother, a doctor, and there's a mother, a doctor, and didn't they talk to somebody else as well? A state trooper. So first, let's talk about the revenue portion briefly, because...
Can we first talk about the mother?
Yeah, go ahead, talk about the mother, sure.
Let's talk about the mother. Let's scroll back up to that one. It was towards the front. It's way stronger now than it was in Woodstock. She was like, in Woodstock, those times, you know, it was only, 2% strong or something like that.
2 to 3%, yeah.
2 to 3%. And now it's way stronger. And yeah, they're right. It is way stronger. But that being said, it's not that different of an animal. If I really, I have some stuff right now that's 27. It's fantastic.
Fair enough.
I've had some stuff that's 94, but you're delving into concentrates, and that's one of my big problems with the medical legalization here in Pennsylvania. You're not allowed to smoke the flower, but you can smoke the concentrates. Okay? They skipped joints, gravity bongs, and bowls, went straight to hippie crack. Frankly, you kind of you threw the strongest shit in the world, skipped everything else. You skipped the weak stuff at 27%. It's really not that big of a deal. Frankly, after the first 5 or 6 minutes, you're pretty much okay.
No, you're saying that's medical, though?
High. Huh?
You're saying that's medical, though?
That's Pennsylvania medical, yeah.
Okay. Well, in medical, you do generally do higher doses of things, because the intent is medical. I mean, I went in when I was getting in. I was deciding. I had the choice to either go to the main campus or to go to the medical school for my doctor's work. And I asked the guy. I said, toxicology, pharmacology. What's the difference? He says the dose. Okay, and it's the same. So, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. But at the same time, pot is so benign that even the stuff that's at 94%,
so
it's gonna kill you.
Here's what I'm saying, though. What she's getting at, to defend her slightly.
I will only defend her slightly. She's not wrong. It was a lower dosage way back then.
So, okay, so 2 to 3% versus 20%. She's not talking about the toxicology. She's not talking about the kid's going to smoke this 20% and die from it versus they wouldn't die from the 3% in Woodstock. She is concerned again with the fact that, yes, there is ample scientific evidence that marijuana smoking in an undeveloped brain does cause long-term consequences.
Fair enough. But at the same time, here's the difference. You're going to have to smoke a whole bale of 1972% weed versus smoking a pipe, one pipe of the 27% weed. And that's the end goal. Less consumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for
maybe.
a somewhat more immediate effect. And frankly, I've had some of the stuff I've had some homegrown that was just terrible. Just terrible. Headache, poorly grown, not cured properly. The people that are doing it in the legal dispensaries, they've got some serious technique. It's properly cured, it's properly dried, it's not moldy, it's not grown with unknown stuff. It's not Miracle Grow, which is probably where that ammonia comes from. It's not
possibly.
like, frankly, the stuff that we were getting back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, 2010, they were coming from illegal grows, and their job was to get as much product as they could as cheaply as possible so they could transport it. And that brings me back to the cop bus. Hey, look at this cop car. We've got all this weed on top of this cop car. Did you see that one?
A Maricopa
It's
County
in there
judge
somewhere.
has ended alcohol.
Oh, is he talking? Stop talking.
I scrolled down too far. Fox, the 12 News sucks. All right, go ahead.
And they had all this pot on top of the car, and I'm just all like, do you know how much weed you just caught? You just caught the decoy, because there was a whole semi-trailer behind that guy, and that dude was driving erratically on purpose, trying to make you think you got the big bus, but you did not, my friend. You didn't even come close to the big one. There were 3 semis behind that dude on the interstate, and they were full of weed. You got the dude, and you're like, oh, you guys were wetting your pants over that. Man, they got through metric tons on that teeny tiny little bust.
Yeah, I mean, going back to a point earlier, though, that you're not going to stop the black market entirely. I mean, just an FYI.
Mostly the black market in its entirety. How much moonshine can you go and buy at the grocery store? None? That's what I thought. You can still find it, though. So you're not going to get rid of the black market. You're not wrong.
Yeah, you're not going to.
You're going to push it down to the point where people who are buying black market pot is like people who are buying moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that many. They can't even compete. They can't compete with Budweiser. They can't compete with Yingling. Yeah. They can make themselves a little bit of money, maybe.
All right. Maybe. Let's look at the childhood use. This is Dr. Wang. Dr. Sam Wang here. He is a pediatric toxicologist.
That just sounds wrong. His name is Sam Wang. Okay, anyways.
So this guy, like, his overall arching thing is saying we're not seeing a lot of massive stuff, but it's also too young to tell or too early to tell. Right. So I think he really was trying not to take a side. Ultimately.
I think out of that whole interview thing, I think that's the guy I had the most respect for, because he said, hey man, look, it's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. We're looking at it, but right now it's too early to tell. And they'll probably have something on it later. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some adverse effects, not even kind of. But I would say that putting it into legal dispensaries takes it out of Johnny drug dealer in high school's hands.
Yeah,
he's going to have to sell heroin now. It's not really going to take drugs out of his hands. It's just going to take pot out of his hands. And if people are just looking for pot, they're probably not going to Johnny.
Yeah. So, and, you know, escalation, there's something to think about, I guess. They talk about road safety a little bit, and I agree with that one. You know, there were a lot more traffic accidents in the Colorado area as soon as they legalized that.
I would go as far as saying yes, you're not wrong, but you're also looking at a lot of rookies high for their very first time.
It's possible.
Driving. It's a large possibility because, frankly, Tom, I don't think I've ever driven quite 100% sober.
I would be surprised if you did.
I'm not going to say I'm going out there blasted out of my freaking mind, but maybe not 100% completely okay. And here it kind of goes to a joke a little bit, which isn't really a joke, but it's kind of a joke. It's like, what's the difference between a drunk driver and a pot smoker? The drunk driver is going to blow through the stop sign completely. The pot smoker is going to wait for it to turn green.
Yeah.
And what they have seen, though, is pot smokers, by and large, probably weren't pulled over because they were speeding as much as they were pulled over for going a little too slow.
Possibly. I don't want to cover this one too much because we're over an hour's time. So,
But this is good content.
Correct. But did legalizing marijuana help Colorado's economy? Footnotes, yeah, they made $53 million in taxes on the first year.
I would have to say overwhelmingly yes. They were population, what, 25, 24? Are they number 24 in population?
Oh, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Something like that. And Washington's like 12, 13? I can't remember. Do you know Pennsylvania is number 4? If they legalized here, wouldn't be no shab 53 million. It'd be a whole lot more, I'm sure.
I think some of it is are you legalizing or are you decriminalizing? Kind of gets us to the end, though. Of course, in this last election, we don't know who the president is, but we do know that in Oregon, you're not going to jail for having some coke. And we ain't talking about some Pepsi Cola here. Oregon becomes the first state to decriminalize hard drugs like heroin and cocaine. What are your thoughts on this?
First off, I have to correct you. It's not Pepsi Cola. It was Coca-Cola. Hence the frick name.
Yes, I know. I did. I said that to get.
You said that on purpose.
Yes,
you came at this with notes.
No, actually, I didn't.
I'm raw dogging it. First, my thoughts on this. Okay. Look. Pot's one thing. I'm not saying people should go to jail for using heroin. I'm not saying they should go to jail for using cocaine. Selling it? Yeah, probably. Breaking into people's houses to get money for it? Yeah. Robbing people, mugging people to get their money for it? Yeah. Frankly, a heroin junkie and a cocaine junkie, those are wildly different drugs than pot. They are different animals. It's a big, big difference. You're not going to die on pot. Eventually, you're going to run out of heroin junkies. Cocaine heads, eventually their hearts are going to stop. It's going to happen. The numbers here, and this comes back down to the 1937 Tax Stamp Act, the Harrison Tax Stamp Act, where they actually illegalized marijuana under the direction of Henry J. Anslinger or Harry J. I can't remember if it's Henry or Harry. I think it's Harry. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's Harry, but it might be Henry. They were looking at drugs to go after.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was heroin and cocaine, amphetamines, things like that, because they were actual killers. These things will kill you. If you do enough of them, you will die. You're gonna die. If you do too much, you're going to die. If you do it for too long, you're going to die. There weren't enough coke heads and heroin junkies to necessitate a drug task force back in the day. So they threw cannabis into it because there were a ton of cannabis users. Mm-hmm. But the problem is they had to outlaw cannabis. And there were a gazillion cannabis farmers. In order to get to do this, they had to outlaw cannabis. What they do, they prey on racial tension between Mexico and the United States back in the 30s. And we've apparently never liked Mexicans for some reason. I've never personally had a problem with Mexicans. I I've met some Mexicans in my day, and I just don't see what the big frickin' deal is. But there were a lot of people who were just basically racist, intolerant people, and they participated in yellow journalism to get rid of marijuana. Marijuana was a slang term. In fact, it was actually called marijuana, but they changed it to marijuana because Juan. Okay, that was a whole racial rebranding of what cannabis was. And there were zillions of cannabis farmers, most of them growing hemp, and it all got locked into the same thing. And now they have the Harrison Tax Stamp Act, but you can't go and get a tax stamp to actually legally possess that without bringing in your pot, to which they arrested their first farmer for illegally having pot without a tax stamp. But you have to bring the pot with you to get it. It was entrapment, big time, huge. And it was enough to make the national news and outlaw the devil weed, marijuana, which was really just cannabis back in the day. And they did that because there weren't enough cocaine and heroin users to necessitate the ATF, as it is now, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And what's the other big one? The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. The DEA, that traces its roots all the way back to the 1937 Harrison Tax Stamp Act.
Okay.
So marijuana got lumped in with cocaine and heroin by some guy who was trying to create a job for himself. Otherwise, he didn't have one. And he did so through yellow journalism and sensationalism.
Okay.
So now, when we come back to Oregon decriminalizes heroin and cocaine, there was a point where those were both perfectly legal. They were perfectly legal. You can look in the old Sears and Roebucks and find morphine.
Yeah.
And heroin and cocaine. It's all in there.
In fact, heroin was actually created because people were so addicted to morphine. They created it because they thought that it would help people get people off of morphine. I know.
Well,
it's like,
it did.
It did.
Wrong. It did. It just made a new problem.
Well, I'm definitely on the fence on full legalization of marijuana. I would absolutely say, hey, decriminalize it for simple possession. I'm on board with that. Full legalization, I don't know.
It wouldn't take away the black market. And if you want to get rid of the black market, full legalization is what it takes.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be perfectly candid, I'm not completely sure I care that much about the marijuana black market. Specifically,
the marijuana black market, if you keep it in place, the cocaine black market and the heroin black market are permitted to exist.
Yeah, and that's no, because by your own statement, if we reduce little Joey in the back alley's marijuana business by legalizing marijuana, he's going to start selling heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
So if we keep him allowed to sell a little bit of weed,
said, if you legalize this stuff, you're going to find out who the heroin and cocaine dealers are real fast.
But like I said, though, I'm not as concerned with killing the black market as much as I'm concerned with. I think that there are some other societal things that we need to be careful before we run full-fledged legalize everything. But what I'm interested in, though, is I would be on board with decriminalization for personal use. I have no problem with that. Decriminalization for dealers, I'm not as much on board with that.
If you decriminalize, you're going to have dealers.
What's that?
Period. If you decriminalize, you're going to have dealers.
Yeah, but again, I'm trying to find a good balance in my own mind because I don't have it completely made up. I don't care if you legalize it or not. I'm not going to use it. And I think most people are going to use their own choices at time to time. But what I'm saying is that there are negative consequences that people in your camp are not even willing to acknowledge. And some of those need to be acknowledged before we move on to it.
Here's the thing that has to be acknowledged. If you take the pot out of the black market gets critically destroyed. because it
disagree with that.
is their cash crop. It's the major cash crop. Right now, Colorado itself cut into Mexico's trade so badly that you can't even get Mexican pot anymore because it's not worth their time. You know what they've moved on to? Avocados.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, avocados. Now they're ransacking avocado farms because the price on them is ridiculously high for what it takes to grow it. But that being said, they're also very heavy into meth. They're heavy into heroin. They're heavy into cocaine. They're heavy into human trafficking. If you take away their major cash crop, now they don't have that resource anymore. Period.
They're going to have the resources.
It will have. They're going to have the resources because they have cocaine, they have heroin,
correct,
they have human trafficking.
And so by your logic, then we just need to completely legalize and decriminalize everything, and that'll kill the black market altogether.
It would kill the black market altogether, and it would put things into a more regulated thing, much like alcohol, because, fun fact, they poisoned alcohol back in the 30s to kill people so they would stop drinking. That was a thing that our government did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our government's always killed people, so.
Yeah, but that was a thing that our government did to its own populace to enforce itself. So if you put that now into a regulated market, the cocaine probably won't be as bad for you, but still, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
you know,
but here, this is the part of the point, though, is that if your argument is we need to get rid of the black market, so legalize things, you have to legalize everything, and now you're a libertarian.
That's kind of true, but that's where we differ, though. I don't think heroin and cocaine should be straight up legal. I don't think methamphetamines should be straight up legal.
But here's the argument, though.
Best of situations, we can see it now with OxyContin. No matter how well we regulate heroin, which OxyContin is derived from, it's still heroin, and it will kill you.
But by your own point, though, if you get rid of the pot dealers, they're going to move on to more things. Though if you keep it alone, they're just going to keep dealing their pot.
You are shrinking their client base.
Yeah.
That's where that gateway theory comes full circle. Their client base, they did use pot. They're probably going to try heroin because their drug dealer doesn't have pot anymore. But now they don't need to go to a drug dealer. That guy just gets cut off the wind. Now he has to sell heroin and cocaine to continue being a drug dealer. Correct. He has to sell methamphetamine.
And that's really what my point is that you're going to push people into.
But you're missing another overall point. They're going to go into selling heroin and selling cocaine, but their client base is gone because the stoners are off over here. Now you're talking about the very, very small 3% of the population that is hooked on cocaine and heroin versus the 73% of Americans that are probably smoking pot. Probably higher, probably closer to 80. Probably some people that you wouldn't even consider. They are smoking.
I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to hypothesize on those statistics, but
not really hypothesize, but
yeah, the ultimate point that I make, though, is that I think that there are some reasons to not go as quickly into full legalization, although decriminalization of marijuana I would be okay with. But Oregon, if you're in Oregon, I might just probably get out of the state soon. This is not going to end well.
It'll be fine. As soon as they decriminalize it, these people will either A, get help, B, die.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I think one of the things
just shrinks a little bit more.
Yeah, but I think, though, I mean, you're taking an argument, though, is that new people are not introduced to these arguments. Okay, we're going to see more people get addiction. You're going to see an increase in this. You're going to see an increase in possible deaths.
More on heroin and cocaine.
How are you going to get more? Because there are some people who don't use it because it's illegal, and now they won't go to jail for it. They won't risk anything for it, and so they might be more willing to try it. It increases the availability. By your own statement, it increases the availability because it's decriminalized.
Legal. Decriminalized does not mean legal.
I know that.
There's still drug dealers that have to provide it for it to remain decriminalized.
No, what I'm saying is that when you do what Oregon is doing, you are going to increase the pool of people willing to try it, willing to use it, because it's not going to destroy their life if they don't. And so you're
Heroin,
going to see an increase in this.
heroin
That's what you're
is
going to
a
see.
monster.
Hmm.
Heroin is a monster.
Yeah.
You can use that once or twice and be hooked for the rest of your life, which will be short. Cocaine,
Yeah.
same kind of animal. Some people are okay with it, but most people are not.
Mm-hmm.
These are, like I said, wildly different animals. And just because it is now decriminalized doesn't mean that people are going to just say, hey, I'm going to go and do some heroin. Because if they
Actually,
decriminalize
it will. There are
now,
going to be a number of people that do.
hey, it's decriminalized. Let's go and do some heroin.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people that I know
Yeah.
are not.
Not a lot. Not a lot. But these are areas. Oregon, Seattle, or Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington. Very similar areas as far as politically, as far as what drives people to them. It tends to drive people into those areas and increases a lot of the negative consequences. You're allowing more people to stay on the streets. You're empowering people to engage in more risky behavior. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't think it really empowers them.
I think it does.
I don't
Yeah.
think it empowers them at all. I think it just takes away the fact that they're going to jail.
No, if you want to know, if you want to see why it's empowering them, look at what happened. I think mostly in Seattle in this case. I think some in Portland as well. They're drawing it together in my mind because they're so similar in what's going on, and they're similar in geography as well. But they basically said we weren't doing it. They basically decriminalized it without decriminalized it, and allowed the homeless groups to basically use this, and it caused a massive problem for all of the people in the area. This was just this summer. You can get on and find the stories and the things that happened to it. And all this does is this spreads that possibility to most other places in the state. It actually does cause a serious group of issues. You should look into it.
Bring me the articles. But even
Yeah.
still, my issue is that people aren't just going to, the average person who doesn't do drugs isn't going to just suddenly.
Correct. I agree with you. I agree with you
The-
on part. But what's going to happen though is that it will send more people will try it. Not everybody's going to. I'm not going to use any of these drugs if you legalize them tomorrow.
More people will try it. I will say fewer people will be afraid to try it. But they are the morons in our society who will die of heroin and cocaine. And frankly, the gene pool could probably be shallowed a little bit on that end.
Yeah, perhaps.
If they're going to do it, they know it's dangerous. They know it will kill them. They know they're going to die. Let them. How about that?
Yeah, there's a thought.
Let them. Stop hurting the world.
But unfortunately, we are in a world where in these particular cities and how they are run, if somebody happens to overdose, we have to spend thousands of dollars on medical resources to keep bringing them back to life and then send them back on the street to do it again. Maybe if we're going to decriminalize it, we also need to add some extra laws to say, I'm sorry, if somebody's in the process of an overdose in the streets in Oregon, let him go. And that's a sad statement. And the fact is, I don't want to make such a statement.
Absolutely down with letting the dude go. I don't think we should be spending thousands of dollars to make sure that the junkie's okay. If the junkie junkies and dies, well, then the junkie junkied and died. That was their choice. They made that decision. They put it in their bodies. They did it themselves. Boo-hoo. The junkie died in the streets. Now, at the same time, should he go to jail just for having it? Because maybe he's not going to die in the street. Maybe if he got help instead, maybe that would be better.
And these are some of the questions that definitely need asked.
Because you're talking about sending a dude into jail who's just going to have access to heroin and cocaine. Do you know how there's so many drugs that get into jail? It's ridiculous how many drugs can get into jail. I mean, it's crazy how many drugs can get into jail. People pick up their best criminal tips in jail. You're basically going to You're going to criminal college if you go to jail.
And this is why I am for decriminalization of marijuana, because I don't think somebody should be going to a jail cell for having some weed.
That's exactly why I'm for the full legalization of marijuana, because nobody should have to worry about it, period. You shouldn't have to worry about a fine. You shouldn't. Come on, man. If you have a bunch of liquor in your trunk that can literally kill you by drinking enough of it in one sitting, you can have that. But you can't have something that's as benign as marijuana has been proven to be. It's not that bad. It literally is not that bad. Most people that do smoke it, you wouldn't even know they did. Probably because they got a good look at you and said, look, man, Tom's cool, but don't smoke around Tom. Whereas they came over to my house and said, hey, man, let's smoke some weed. I'm like, my wife's not kind of really cool. We're not going to smoke around my wife, man. We can't even do it when she's awake. Because she doesn't need to know.
No, there you go.
Frankly, it's none of her business. I'm not hurting her. I'm not hurting anyone else. I'm just smoking a bowl at the end of the night. Everything's honky-dory. And it's been a good day. You know what the worst part of my day was? Not smoking before Sesame Street. Because, do you know how many times I've seen the Pumpernickel episode? It's a lot.
So what happens if you're in the hallucinogenic levels of it when you see Big Bird come on the screen? I'm just inquiring minds got to know.
I haven't been able to smoke enough. It's not possible.
Yeah.
I've tried and no, I haven't.
Oh,
but
wow.
Frankly,
Well, we should wrap this one up at this point.
Let's wrap this one up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. My final points, I'm okay with marijuana decriminalization. I'm not completely on board with legalization.
I'm absolutely fine with decriminalization. I'm fully on board with straight up legalization.
Okay.
If you're not a drinker now, you're probably not going to turn into a drinker tomorrow. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. If you're not a cigarette smoker now, you're probably not going to turn into a cigarette smoker tomorrow. If you're a pot smoker now, well, you were already a pot smoker, and now you're no longer a criminal. Huh? Hang on. And that's the giant mind screw that people are dealing with legalization right now, especially in the stoner community. Frankly, we're like, wait a second, hang on. Guys, I'm not a criminal anymore. I can go and buy a bag of weed, and I don't even have to hang out for an hour and a half to make it look like nothing's going on. Hang on, let me wrap my head around that.
Interesting.
But,
okay.
Frankly, no. Should heroin and cocaine be completely illegal? No. Decriminalized? Maybe. But even still, I'm still a little iffy on that one, man. If you keep that criminalized, period, and you fully legalized pot, you would do a lot of damage to everything else in the chain that deals with the black market. Because now the people who are smoking pot and knew the heroin dealer, look, man, that guy's definitely dealing heroin.
Yeah. Well,
however, most people probably won't snitch.
Yeah, probably not.
At the same time, they're not going to be associated with them at the same time. So, like, dude, you're selling heroin. I'm out of here. I just wanted some pot, but you're busy breaking up. I don't want to watch you shoot up. Yeah,
there you go. All right. Well, that's interesting perspectives. Obviously, I'm not sure either one of us particularly changed minds and opinions, but it's very good to hash out the various issues one way or the other. There you go, guys. Two people, same parents, same home, same everything, radical different ideas.
Nature versus nurture.
And we can say this though, if we could get our world to come together and have a civil conversation amongst such disagreements, the whole world would be better for that. And I think maybe that should be the ultimate goal.
Maybe that should be the ultimate goal. Let's do world peace. Let's have
Should we do world peace next time? That sounds like a fun topic. I don't
Well,
know.
frankly, before we have world peace, we're going to have to legalize pot, and if everybody just smoked it all at the same time, we'd have it for at least 2 hours.
Interesting perspective. Well, anyway, we'll wrap this one up right here.
Different perspective. Bill Hicks. Look up Bill Hicks.
Bill Hicks.
I don't think it should be legal. I think it should be mandatory. Everybody's stuck in traffic for 3 hours in a traffic jam. Guy behind you, trapped there just like you are, blaring on his horn. Man, man. You get out of the car and you say, hey, smoke this. And he does. And he goes, sorry, man, I was taking life too seriously.
Interesting. Well, that is the one area there was a lot of consensus, though, is that it's probably not good to be smoking on the road. Well,
probably not, but if you're in a traffic jam and nowhere to go for 2 hours, you may as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, guys, we will wrap up this edition of TNT Points of View right here. Thank you for watching, everybody, and
Tom,
we'll see you.
Good talking to you, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you later. Make sure you're checking out our links in the description below.
Absolutely. Awesome.